The rain had started 20 minutes earlier, not the soft kind that whispered against windows. This was cold November rain, sharp and relentless, turning the streets of Brookdale into rivers of reflected neon and blurred headlights. Downtown traffic crawled beneath the storm while people hurried under umbrellas, desperate to get home before the weather got worse. Detective Ryan Mercer sat inside his patrol SUV near the corner of Madison and 8th, drumming his fingers against the steering wheel. 12 years on the force had taught him one thing: people lied. Everyone lied, especially the ones who looked too polished, too confident, too clean. Ryan considered himself good at reading people, better than most cops. He believed instincts mattered more than paperwork, more than procedure, more than the politically correct garbage the department kept pushing during mandatory seminars. And tonight, his instincts were screaming. A black BMW X7 rolled slowly past the intersection. Brand new, jet black paint. Custom rims, dark tinted windows. Ryan's eyes narrowed. The woman driving looked young, maybe early 30s, black hair tied neatly behind her head, expensive coat, diamond earrings catching flashes of red brake lights. Too young. To perfect. Too comfortable in a $90,000 SUV. He leaned forward slightly. Probably another scammer. He muttered to himself. The city had been flooded lately with fraud cases, drug money, stolen luxury vehicles. Ryan had built an entire worldview around the belief that expensive things always came with dirty secrets. The BMW stopped briefly at the red light before turning right. Ryan pulled out behind her. The storm intensified. Wipers swept across his windshield furiously as he tailed the vehicle through the upscale district near Riverside Heights. Old brick homes stood behind iron gates while security lights glowed through rain-soaked hedges. This neighborhood wasn't just rich. It was powerful. Judges lived here. Executives. Politicians. People Ryan secretly resented. The BMW stayed perfectly within the speed limit. No swerving. No sudden turns. No obvious violations. Still, he followed 3 blocks. For 5. Then finally, the driver changed lanes without holding the signal long enough. Barely 2 seconds. That was enough. Ryan's hand immediately hit the switch. Red and blue lights exploded across the wet street. Inside the BMW, Vanessa Reed closed her eyes for half a second. Not again. She pulled over carefully beside the curb, beneath a flickering street lamp. Rain hammered against the roof of the SUV while classical piano music continued softly through the speakers. Vanessa reached up calmly and lowered the volume. Her heartbeat had already started rising. She hated this feeling. Not fear exactly. Exhaustion. A deep familiar exhaustion. She glanced at the clock. 11:14 p.m. After a 14-hour workday, all she wanted was sleep. Instead, flashing police lights reflected endlessly in her mirrors. Her phone buzzed through Bluetooth. Double quotes Vanessa. Her younger brother asked through the car speakers, "You still driving?" "Yeah," she replied quietly. Got pulled over. "What? Why?" "No idea." Immediately his tone changed. "Keep your hands visible." Vanessa almost smiled sadly. "You sound like Dad." Because Dad was right. She looked into the mirror as the officer stepped out into the rain. Tall. Broad shoulders. Confident walk. The kind of officer who moved like every sidewalk belonged to him. "Listen," her brother continued, voice tense now. "Don't argue with him. Just get home safe." Vanessa stared forward. "I know." She ended the call. Then she prepared herself. Interior lights on. Window lowered. Hands visible on the steering wheel. Everything careful. Everything controlled. Officer Mercer approached slowly through the rain, flashlight already raised. He stopped beside the driver's window and shined the beam directly into her face. "License and registration." No greeting. No explanation. Vanessa reached slowly toward her purse. "My registration is inside the center console." she said calmly. Then open it slowly. She did. Ryan watched every movement suspiciously. The leather interior. Designer handbag. Gold watch. Luxury dashboard. His irritation grew stronger by the second. What do you do for work? He asked suddenly. Vanessa handed him the documents. I'm an attorney. Ryan glanced at her license. Vanessa Reed. Address. Riverside Heights. He looked back up at her. Attorney. Sure. He'd heard criminals claim worse. You changed lanes improperly back there, he said flatly. I used my signal. Not long enough. Vanessa stayed silent. Rainwater dripped from the brim of his patrol cap as he continued staring into the vehicle. Then his eyes stopped on the black briefcase sitting on the passenger seat. Expensive. Professional. Locked. Interesting. Double quotes. You alone tonight? Yes. What's in the case? Work files? Ryan tilted his head slightly. You mind opening it? Vanessa's expression changed almost invisibly. There it was. The shift. The moment every educated minority in America knew too well. The realization that this wasn't a routine stop anymore. Officer, she said carefully, is there a reason you're asking to search my belongings? Ryan ignored the question. You nervous about something? No, you seem nervous. I'm being questioned during a traffic stop in the middle of the night. She replied evenly. Most people would be uncomfortable. Ryan smiled faintly. Not a friendly smile, a challenge. You got an attitude. Vanessa inhaled slowly. Stay calm. Always stay calm. I'm simply asking whether there's probable cause for a search. The second those words left her mouth, Ryan's posture hardened. He hated legal language from civilians. Especially from people like her. People who thought education placed them above cops. He stepped backward slightly and shined the flashlight deeper into the vehicle. Then he said the magic words, I smell narcotics. Vanessa stared at him in disbelief. What? I smell marijuana. That's impossible. Step out of the vehicle. Rain pounded harder now. Cars passed slowly nearby. Vanessa's chest tightened. This was spiraling. Fast. Double quotes. Officer. I do not consent to a search. Ryan's jaw flexed immediately. There it is. There what is? The refusal. That's my constitutional right. No, Ryan snapped. It's suspicious. He opened the driver's door himself. Out. Now. Vanessa stepped out carefully into the freezing rain. Water soaked her coat instantly. The street lamp above flickered weakly while thunder rolled somewhere far across the city skyline. Ryan towered over her. You lawyers always think you know everything. He muttered. Vanessa froze slightly. How did he? Then she realized. The briefcase. The way he kept staring at it. What precinct are you out of? She asked quietly. You asking because you're planning a complaint? I'm asking because you're escalating a traffic stop without cause. Ryan laughed once. Cold. Short. You know what your problem is. Vanessa said nothing. You think rules protect you? Before she could answer, he grabbed her wrist suddenly. Hard. What are you doing? She gasped. Double quotes. Turn around. You can't. Yes, I can. He shoved her against the wet BMW. Pain exploded through her shoulder. Stop resisting. I'm not resisting. Another patrol car pulled up nearby. A younger officer stepped out, immediately looking uncertain as he saw the situation unfolding. Everything okay? The rookie asked. She's resisting search procedures. Ryan barked. Vanessa's cheek pressed against the freezing rain-covered metal of her SUV. Humiliation flooded through her body. Apartment windows nearby lit up. People were watching. Always watching. The rookie hesitated. Did we find anything? Not yet. Not yet. As if the evidence already existed in Ryan's head. He twisted her arms behind her back violently and snapped cuffs onto her wrists. Too tight. Deliberately too tight. Vanessa fought to steady her breathing. Stay calm. Don't panic. Ryan immediately reached for the briefcase. You cannot search that, Vanessa said sharply. I can now. That case contains privileged legal material. Ryan smirked. Then, maybe you should have cooperated. He forced the locks open. Paperwork spilled slightly inside. Legal documents. Court filings. Stamped evidence photos. Then Ryan noticed a dark. The ride to the precinct was silent except for the rain. Vanessa sat in the back of the patrol SUV with her cuffed hands pressed against the cold plastic seat. Red and blue lights flashed endlessly across the dark windows while the city blurred past outside. Detective Ryan Mercer drove with both hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary. His pulse hadn't slowed since opening that credential wallet. Federal Prosecutor, Department of Justice, Organized Crime Division. The words kept replaying in his head. Beside him, Officer Ethan Cole sat rigidly silent. The rookie hadn't spoken in almost 5 minutes. He kept glancing nervously into the side mirror toward Vanessa. She looked calm now. Too calm. That terrified him more. Most people cried after an arrest. Most people yelled. Threatened lawsuits. Begged. Vanessa Reed simply watched the city lights through the rain-covered glass with the controlled silence of someone already planning 10 steps ahead. Finally, Ethan cleared his throat carefully. Detective. Ryan didn't look at him. What? Should we maybe call the captain? Ryan's jaw tightened instantly. For what? Ethan hesitated. She's federal. So, this whole thing should get reviewed before booking. Ryan finally looked at him. Cold. Sharp. You questioning my arrest? No, sir, She resisted lawful investigation. Ethan swallowed. The problem was he knew that wasn't true. He had seen everything. The stop. The escalation. The invented narcotics claim. And now the knot in his stomach kept getting worse. Ryan slowed at a red light. Downtown, rainwater streamed across the windshield while neon signs reflected off the pavement. Outside, she pulled the lawyer card. Ryan muttered bitterly. That's all this is, but even he didn't fully believe it anymore, because there had been something in Vanessa's eyes after he found the badge. Not fear, not panic. Recognition. Like she had seen men like him before, like she already knew exactly how this story would end. The precinct appeared ahead through the storm. Concrete walls. Floodlights. Rows of patrol vehicles glistening under heavy rain. Ryan parked aggressively and stepped out first. The second he opened Vanessa's door, cold wind blasted through the garage. Move. Vanessa stepped out slowly. Her wrists were red from the cuffs now. Her dark coat clung to her shoulders soaked with rainwater. Officers near the entrance glanced over curiously. A woman in cuffs. Luxury vehicle. Federal-looking credentials. People were already staring. Ryan marched her through the station doors. The warmth inside hit immediately, along with the familiar smell of stale coffee, printer toner, wet jackets, and fluorescent lighting. Conversations slowly died. Heads turned. A television mounted near the ceiling continued playing muted late-night news while officers behind desks watched silently. Vanessa recognized some faces, not personally. Professionally. She had seen a few of these officers testifying in federal court before. Now they were looking at her like she was a suspect. The irony almost made her laugh. Ryan pushed her toward booking. Female prisoner, he announced loudly. Desk Sergeant Linda Graves looked up from paperwork. Mid-50s. Sharp eyes. 20-8 years on the force. The moment she saw Vanessa's appearance, her expression changed slightly. What happened? Traffic stop escalated. Ryan answered quickly. Obstruction. Resisting. Graves looked unconvinced. Vanessa's soaked clothes, the bruising already forming near her cheek. The tension in the room. Something felt wrong. Immediately. Then Ethan quietly handed her the credential wallet. Everything changed. Graves opened it. Read it. Once. Then again slower. Her face lost color. She slowly looked up at Ryan. You arrested a federal prosecutor. Ryan crossed his arms defensively. She obstructed an investigation. Graves stared at him in disbelief. You called downtown. She doesn't get special treatment because of a title. That's not what I asked, Ryan said. Nothing. The silence answered for him. Sergeant Graves closed her eyes. Briefly, Jesus Christ. Vanessa finally spoke. Calmly, I'd like to make my phone call. Ryan scoffed immediately. Already. Calling your powerful friends. Vanessa turned toward him slowly. No, detective, she said quietly. I'm calling your future problem. The room went dead silent. Even nearby officers stopped pretending not to listen. Ryan stepped closer. You threatening me? No. Vanessa's voice stayed perfectly level. I'm promising accountability. Something about the way she said it unsettled everyone in the room because she didn't sound emotional. She sounded certain. Graves uncuffed one of Vanessa's wrists carefully and guided her toward the booking phone. You get one call. Vanessa nodded once. She dialed from memory. Not her family. Not a lawyer. A direct secure number. The line rang twice. Then, Deputy Attorney General's office. Vanessa's voice remained calm. This is Vanessa Reed. I need Director Harrison. Immediately, Sergeant Graves nearly stopped breathing. Even Ryan's confidence flickered slightly. Director Harrison wasn't just important. He was one of the most powerful federal prosecutors in the entire state. After several seconds, a deeper voice came onto the line. Vanessa, it's me. What happened? There was a brief pause. Then, I've been arrested. The silence on the other end became terrifying. Not shocked. Controlled. Dangerously controlled. Where? Central Precinct. Detective Ryan Mercer. Ryan tried keeping a straight face, but sweat had started forming near his collar now. Vanessa continued calmly. Traffic stop escalated into unlawful detention, illegal search, physical force, and false narcotics claims. Every single word landed like a hammer. Sergeant Graves slowly sat down. Ethan looked physically ill. Then Harrison spoke again. Are you injured? My wrists are bruised. Shoulder pain. Possible concussion. Ryan finally snapped. Oh, come on. Vanessa ignored him completely. I want medical documentation immediately, she continued, and I want body cam preservation orders issued. Before footage disappears. That sentence changed everything, because suddenly every officer in the room realized this wasn't going away quietly. This wasn't another complaint form buried under paperwork. This was federal. Career-ending federal. Harrison's voice turned ice cold. Do not say another word to anyone. I'm contacting Internal Affairs, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the Chief Commissioner right now. Then he added, and Vanessa. Yes, I hope they understand what they've done. The line disconnected. Silence swallowed the room. Ryan forced a laugh. Fake confidence. She's trying to scare people. Nobody laughed with him. Sergeant Graves slowly stood. Detective Mercer, she said carefully. Give me your body cam. Ryan stared at her. What? Now, you don't have authority to. Actually, another voice interrupted from behind. I do. Everyone turned. Captain Elena Vasquez stood near the station entrance, still wearing her rain-soaked command coat. Tall. Composed. Deadly calm. And behind her too, Internal Affairs investigators. Ryan's stomach dropped instantly. Captain Vasquez walked forward slowly while removing black leather gloves. Detective Mercer, she said quietly. My office. Immediately, Ryan tried recovering control. Captain, this woman resisted. I said now. Her tone cut through the room like a blade. For the first time all night Ryan Mercer looked afraid. Vanessa watched him silently as he walked past her toward the captain's office, and, as the office door closed behind him, she finally allowed herself one slow breath. because the real fight was only beginning. Captain Elena Vasquez closed the office door behind Detective Ryan Mercer with deliberate calm. Outside the glass walls of her office, the precinct buzzed with nervous energy. Officers whispered near computer terminals. Phones rang endlessly. Internal affairs investigators moved through the bullpen collecting statements while the storm continued raging outside the station windows. Inside the office, however, silence. Dead silence. Ryan remained standing. Elena, this is getting blown out of proportion. Captain Vasquez slowly removed her wet coat and hung it over a chair. Then she turned toward him. Sit down. Ryan hesitated. That's an order. Detective, he sat. For the first time in years, Ryan Mercer suddenly felt like a rookie again. Vasquez opened a thin folder already placed on her desk by Internal Affairs. Tell me exactly why you initiated the stop. She made an illegal lane change. Dashcam confirms that. Ryan paused slightly. It should. The rain interfered with visibility. Vasquez stared at him for several seconds. Then, why did you escalate to probable cause? Ryan crossed his arms. I smelled marijuana. Did your partner? He didn't say. He didn't. That's not what I asked. Ryan's jaw tightened. Outside the office glass, he could see Ethan Cole speaking quietly with one of the internal affairs investigators. Fear finally began creeping into his chest. Vasquez noticed immediately. Your body language is changing, she said calmly. Ryan scoffed. This is political pressure. No, she replied coldly. This is what consequences look like. She slid a printed document across the desk. Ryan looked down. Copy of Vanessa Reed's federal profile. Lead prosecutor. Organized Crime Division. Special Investigations Authority. Federal Corruption Task Force. Then his eyes landed on something else. Current active assignment. Operation Hollow Crown. Ryan frowned. What is that? Vasquez leaned back slowly. That, she said quietly, is the biggest anti-corruption investigation this state has seen in 20 years. Ryan felt the blood drain from his face. She's not just some prosecutor. Mercer. Vasquez tapped the folder. She's the federal government's lead attorney against police corruption, judicial bribery, organized crime laundering, and abuse of power cases. Ryan blinked slowly. No. This couldn't be happening. She was already investigating officers before tonight. The room suddenly felt smaller. Hotter. Ryan tried recovering. So what? She still resisted. Vasquez almost looked disappointed. You still don't understand. She leaned forward. The moment you lied about narcotics, this stopped being a bad arrest. Another pause. It became a felony. Outside the office, Ethan looked over nervously toward them again. Ryan followed his gaze. Then Vasquez delivered the next blow. Internal Affairs already pulled preliminary body cam audio. Ryan froze. She refused consent legally? You claim narcotics only after she asserted her constitutional rights. That's not true. Then, pray the footage proves otherwise. Ryan's breathing slowly changed now. Faster. Shallower. Because somewhere deep down he remembered. Every word. Every second. And he suddenly realized exactly how bad this might become. Meanwhile, downstairs in medical intake, Vanessa sat quietly while a paramedic photographed bruises forming around her wrists, purple marks swelling near the shoulder, a small cut beneath her cheekbone. Does this hurt? The medic asked gently while pressing near her. Collarbone. Vanessa winced slightly. Yes. The medic exchanged a look with another nurse. Everything was being documented carefully now. Chain of evidence. Photographs. Time stamps. Injury reports. Vanessa knew the system too well not to understand what was happening. This wasn't just about defending herself anymore. This was evidence. Collection. A young officer approached, cautiously near the doorway. Miss Reed. Vanessa looked up. It was Ethan Cole. He looked pale. Nervous. Like a man standing near the edge of a cliff. Can we talk privately? The medic stepped away. Ethan lowered his voice immediately. I didn't know he was going to do that. Vanessa watched him silently. I'm serious. Ethan continued quickly. I thought it was a normal stop. You still participated. The words hit him hard. I know. Vanessa could see the guilt all over his face. Young officers always thought corruption looked dramatic. Drug money. Secret deals. Violence. But real corruption often looked ordinary. A small a fake report. Silence when you should speak. Ethan swallowed hard. He's done this before. Vanessa's eyes narrowed slightly. What do you mean? Ethan glanced around nervously before continuing. He always targets certain drivers, expensive cars, minority neighborhoods, anyone who argues. Vanessa said nothing. He says people who know their rights are usually hiding something. There it was. The truth. Not just ego. Pattern. Systematic pattern. How many times? Vanessa asked quietly. Ethan looked sick now. A lot. A long silence followed. Then Vanessa spoke carefully. If you're telling the truth, then you need legal counsel immediately. You think they'll charge him? Vanessa looked directly into his eyes. I think this station is about to explode. Upstairs, Captain. Vasquez's office door burst open suddenly. An internal affairs investigator stepped inside, holding a tablet. Captain, you need to see this. He played body cam footage. The audio filled the room instantly. Vanessa's calm voice, Ryan's aggressive tone. Then, I do not consent to searches. A few seconds later, I smell narcotics. The investigator paused the footage. Silence. Vasquez slowly looked at Ryan. Jesus Christ. Ryan stood. Abruptly. This doesn't prove anything. The investigator looked stunned. It proves timing. No, it proves she got confrontational. Vasquez slammed her hand against the desk suddenly. Enough. The entire office shook silent. You unlawfully detained a federal prosecutor. Ryan opened his mouth again. You fabricated probable cause. She was suspicious. You assaulted her. She resisted. You falsified justification after the fact. Ryan's breathing became erratic now. The walls were closing. In. Everything he built his career on. Authority. Control. Fear. All collapsing in a single night. Then came the final blow. The investigator spoke quietly. There's more. He opened another file. Traffic stop. Statistics. Charts. Demographic. Breakdowns. Search escalation percentages. Minority. Stop ratios. Years of data. Ryan stared at the screen in disbelief. What is this? Your history. Vasquez answered coldly. The investigator continued. Over the last 8 years, Detective Mercer initiated 73% more discretionary searches on minority drivers compared to departmental averages. Ryan immediately pointed toward the screen. Defensively, that doesn't mean anything. It means patterns. That's politics. It means. Vasquez interrupted quietly. You've been doing this for years. Ryan looked genuinely shaken now. Because for the first time he realized this investigation had moved beyond Vanessa Reed. This wasn't one arrest anymore. This was his entire career, being pulled apart thread by thread. And somewhere across the city, federal prosecutors were already beginning to ask a terrifying question. How many innocent people had Ryan Mercer destroyed before finally choosing the wrong victim? 3 months later, the city of Brookdale no longer saw Detective Ryan Mercer, a decorated officer. Now they saw him on television. Every night. Every channel. Every headline. Former detective under federal investigation. Civil rights probe expands. Dozens of cases reopened. The footage of Vanessa Reed being slammed against her BMW had leaked to weeks after the arrest. Someone inside the department had anonymously released the body cam files online. The video spread like wildfire. Millions watched it. People paused frame by frame analyzing Ryan's face. Vanessa's calm voice, the exact moment he fabricated probable cause after she refused consent. Public outrage exploded instantly. Protests formed outside Central Precinct within 48 hours. Community leaders demanded resignations. Journalists began digging through years of complaints against Ryan Mercer, and what they found was horrifying. The complaints had always been there. Ignored. Buried. Dismissed. A teenager illegally searched during a bicycle stop. A nurse forced onto the pavement outside a grocery store. A Latino businessman detained because his luxury watch looked suspicious. One accusation alone could be explained away, but dozens. Patterns don't lie. And now the entire city was staring directly at one. Inside federal court, Vanessa Reed sat silently at the prosecution table watching Ryan Mercer enter in handcuffs. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. 3 months ago, he controlled every room he walked into. Now federal marshals controlled his movements. No badge. No gun. No authority. Just another defendant awaiting judgment. The courtroom overflowed with reporters, civilians, and police officers pretending not to look nervous, because Ryan's downfall had created a ripple effect through the entire department. Internal Affairs reopened over 200 arrests connected to his unit. 47 convictions were immediately flagged as potentially compromised. 9 inmates had already been released pending review. Families who had spent years believing nobody would listen were suddenly receiving phone calls from federal attorneys, and every new case uncovered the same ugly truth. Ryan Mercer hadn't been protecting the city. He'd been hunting inside. Judge Eleanor Whitmore entered the courtroom sharply at 9 a.m. Everyone rose. Ryan remained staring downward at the defense table. He looked older now. Smaller. Fear had hollowed him out from the inside. The prosecution presented the case methodically. Body cam footage, medical records. Traffic stop data, witness testimony, civil rights experts, former victims, one after another. Each story sounded disturbingly similar. Minor infraction. Escalation. Threats. Illegal search. False report. Humiliation. The jury listened in complete silence. Then came Ethan Cole. The young rookie officer walked to the witness stand visibly nervous. Ryan watched him with burning hatred. Ethan avoided eye contact completely. Under oath, he told the truth. Everything. The fabricated narcotics claim, the pattern of stops, the racist jokes in patrol cars. The way Ryan viewed wealthy minorities as automatic suspects, and finally the sentence that shattered whatever remained of Ryan Mercer's defense. He told me, Ethan said quietly, voice trembling slightly, that people like her don't belong in neighborhoods like Riverside Heights. The courtroom fell completely silent. Ryan suddenly exploded. That's not what I said. Mr. Mercer, the judge snapped instantly. Control yourself. But the damage was done. The jury had seen it, the anger, the entitlement, the same arrogance captured in the body cam footage. Then Vanessa Reed took the stand. She wore a dark navy suit, with her hair tied neatly behind her head. No dramatic performance. No revenge-filled speeches. Just calm truth. For nearly 4 hours, she walked the jury through every moment of the stop. The fear, the humiliation, the realization that legal knowledge alone couldn't protect her from a man determined to see guilt. Then the prosecutor asked the final question. Ms. Reed, why pursue this case so aggressively? Vanessa paused. The courtroom waited silently. Then she answered, because I survived it. Another pause. But to many others didn't. The jury never forgot those words. Closing arguments lasted less than a day. The defense tried everything. Stress. Miscommunication, split-second decisions, dangerous policing environments, but none of it could erase the evidence. The body cam footage alone destroyed them, especially the timing. Refusal first, Fake probable cause second. The lie was undeniable. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. At 6:42 p.m. they returned. Ryan stood as the verdict was read, on the charge of falsifying official reports. Guilty. His shoulders dropped slightly. On the charge of unlawful detention under color of authority. Guilty. A quiet murmur spread through the courtroom. On the charge of aggravated civil rights violations. Guilty. Ryan closed his eyes, but the final charge hit hardest, on the charge of felony misconduct and abuse of official power. Guilty. Every count, every single one. A former detective who once believed he controlled justice now stood convicted by it. Weeks later, sentencing day arrived. Judge Whitmore looked directly at Ryan before delivering punishment. Power without accountability becomes corruption, she said firmly. And corruption wearing a badge is among the most dangerous forms of corruption there is. Ryan stared blankly ahead. You are trusted to protect constitutional rights, the judge continued. Instead, you weaponized your authority against the very citizens you swore to serve. Then came the sentence. 7 years federal prison. No parole eligibility for the first 5. Gasps spread across the courtroom. Police officers rarely receive sentences like that. But this case had become symbolic, a warning, a line finally drawn. As federal marshals led Ryan away in cuffs, he briefly looked toward Vanessa. For the first time he truly understood. This was never about one traffic stop. It was about every moment before it. Every shortcut, every lie, every abuse of power. Nobody stopped. Until finally, he chose the wrong victim. Months later, reform spread through Brookdale. Mandatory body cam activation laws, independent review boards, federal oversight training. Dozens of officers resigned before investigations reached them. Captain Elena Vasquez became commissioner and publicly admitted the department had failed its communities for years. And Vanessa Reed became something unexpected. Not just a prosecutor, a symbol. Universities invited her to speak. Civil rights organizations sought her guidance. Young law students quoted her testimony online. But privately, the scars remained. Some nights she still remembered the freezing rain, the handcuffs, the feeling of helplessness against her own car. Trauma didn't disappear simply because justice eventually arrived. Still, one evening nearly a year later, Vanessa stood outside a law school auditorium after finishing a lecture on constitutional rights. Students surrounded her asking questions excitedly. Among them stood a nervous first-year student named Alicia. Young. Determined. Hopeful. Double quotes. How do you keep fighting? Alicia asked quietly after the crowd faded. Vanessa looked out across the city skyline, glowing beneath the night sky. Then she smiled softly, because fear grows fastest when good people stay silent. Alicia nodded slowly. Vanessa glanced down toward the street below where traffic moved peacefully through the city. Somewhere out there another officer was making another stop. Another citizen was feeling afraid. The fight wasn't over. Maybe it never would be. But now people were watching. Questioning. Demanding accountability. And sometimes that's where justice truly begins. The flashing lights in the mirror. The moment someone finally says, "No more,"